Potter's Avenue,
Oh.
and he found some lots that were for sale on Potter's Avenue and bought 2 lots on that particular street.
Wow.
And he was able at the time to put up a frame building on one of the lots, which would be for his bakery.
Oh, wow.
And he did that with record time, and he engaged himself in business in that particular neighborhood, not too far from the Assumption Church on Potter's Avenue. Now, very shortly after, both John Myers and Catherine, the parents of Timothy, must have figured that it would be a good move for them to leave Pearl Street. And I think Edward was married at the time.
So
Edward got married, and they bought a home at 356 Potter's Avenue.
well, let's when you say that, since we know that this is actually a pretty good time to say. So, what's the date of John Myers' death?
John Myers died in 1883.
Okay, so
They moved up there approximately 1880. I would say about
so
1880.
in 1889, Timothy ends up marrying Julia O'Connor, but only Catherine would have seen that marriage.
Oh, Catherine saw. Yes,
Right?
you're right.
Catherine would have passed away in 1891.
Yeah, and
so she would have seen the marriage.
and probably was there.
Probably was there at that wedding. Did he have the bakery prior? I'm wondering, did he have it prior to marriage?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so
He
he was already moved up onto Potter's Avenue.
Well, he did for a short period of time after putting up the bakery and operating the bakery. He had ovens put in there, and my father would tell me that he used to be able to pick up something like a 50-pound barrel of sugar, could put it on his shoulder and bring it. Yeah, he was strong. He was strong.
Yeah.
Because he was alone and it was hard work. And I would presume that he put long hours over in the bakery.
Wow, it's amazing.
Yeah, and it's interesting to note that he was only there a short while when his mother and father bought a home at the corner of Potter's Avenue and Halton. And it wasn't opposite the bakery, but it was diagonally across from the bakery, but only a few steps from the bakery. The bakery was on the north side of Potter's Avenue, and they bought a home at the corner of Halton and Potter's, which would have been on the south side.
Oh, so we're saying John Myers moves, right?
With his mother and father when they went up there.
Oh, wow.
When they moved up there, shortly after starting the bakery. But in between time, he must have probably walked from Potter's Avenue down Elmwood Avenue to Trinity Square, and then 2 or 3 streets was Pearl. You'd come to Pearl.
Wow.
So he probably walked down.
That's amazing.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Now,
I was gonna. The reason why I was, not to close the loop, but I love to kind of succinctly go through John. So really, John, 1845 arrives on that Sweden.
Yes.
And in this death certificate, kind of confirms, links up everything, because here it says, let's see, he dies on February 3rd, 1883.
That's right.
And it lists him as 59 years old, 9 months.
Yeah.
And if we bring that back, that would give us a birth date of around 1823.
that would be about right.
And
yes.
if the records on the ship say John Myers was 22 in 1845, so that would map out perfectly.
That.
Yeah, that would support that. So
that's approximately right.
Yeah.
And the thing was that it indicates here that he evidently fell in the house and he dislocated the cervical between
dislocation of
cervical between is that FEMA? No, I don't quite know.
Yeah.
And something. He did have a fall in the house and died as a result of this fall.
Wow. And the doctor was Dr. O'Leary.
Yes, Dr. O'Leary, yes, he was. And it indicates here, too, that the undertaker was Gorman?
Gorman Brothers?
Gorman?
Oh, Gorman Brothers. Sorry, Gorman.
That's right.
Gorman Brothers.
Now, do you know that I found out later that Catherine McCarthy was related somehow to the Gormans of Fox Point.
Oh, wow.
And they later had a store in Fox Point and also an undertaking parlor. But back in those early days, most wakes were conducted in the house.
Oh, wow.
But the Gormans also had a place in South Providence, somewhere along Prairie Avenue. But they were absolutely related. But they were blood relatives, but I don't know, I have never traced the connection.
Wow. It's funny we stay close to that type of business, meaning the Goodwins.
Yes,
obviously.
and yeah.
Things don't break, you know?
No, they don't break.
Times change, but
some things stay the same. Yeah.
We stay close. I also want to say that what's also great about this return, the death certificate, is it does list, you know, he was born in Ireland, and it lists his father's name as Michael Myers, and his mother's name as Honora.
Right.
And parents' birthplace were Ireland. So this actually gives us a good, you know, linkage even back into Ireland.
Very much so.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we'll have to do is to establish the maiden name for Honora.
Right.
And I did attempt to do something like that, and I don't like to speak of things that I'm so uncertain of, but I did come up with a marriage between a John Myers and a Honora Mangan at that time, but I can't say conclusively that I have the right one.
Might be,
but with your computer, Stephen, I think that we're going to be able to make hay here.
Yeah. Well, you know, what I would like to do is maybe we can take a little break.
We will.
And maybe we can show a couple of set up the next transition, which would maybe talk a little bit about Timothy, and move forward with some materials that we have on him and pictures and stuff.
Very good. Excellent.
Great.
Thank you, Stephen, and we'll continue on. Timothy Myers. Yeah.
Timothy Myers, and he had his apprenticeship at the bakery. Now, he seemed to be a bit of an entrepreneur. Would you say he was excited to get into business?
Oh, I would say there would be every expectation to believe that that was true. He wasn't one that probably was disposed to staying working there for Rice and Hayward. I think that he would want to go out on his own. He was entrepreneurial and aggressive in many ways, but always considerate of others and all. He had it was described that he had a wonderful disposition. And years later, when his own children were older, he said to my dad one day like that, he said, "Billy, I will never be able to leave you a lot of money, but I'll leave you with a good name."
Yeah.
And my father's repeated that to me, and I like that.
Yeah.
I like that myself.
Yeah.
So that came from your great-grandfather.
Wow.
Yeah. And then, of course, he was able to buy a couple of lots that were out on Potter Avenue opposite the first lot was opposite Jackson Street. It later became Calhoun Avenue, but it went on to Potter Avenue, and then you'd either go right or left when you got on Potter Avenue. But he did, I believe that he bought 2 lots, and but I don't know whether one followed the other or they were both bought at the same time.
Right.
His mother lived diagonally across the street, And of course, later, when he got married, he lived at the house across the street when he had his bakery. And around 1889, just about the year that he was married, he signed on with a contractor to put a 2.5-story house up beside the bakery.
Now, how long did he sell the bakery?
No, because when he died in a St. Patrick's Day parade in 1915, and he died. He marched in a St. Patrick's Day parade, and somewhere along the parade route, he had kind of a dizzy spell or a fainting spell, and he went off to the side, and he probably became unconscious and was taken to the Rhode Island hospital, and he died 5 days later on the 22nd. The probability would be that he never regained consciousness, and he died of a cerebral hemorrhage.
Oh, wow.
But he was marching in a St. Patrick's Day parade, 1915.
Wow.
And then when he had a cerebral hemorrhage, and then he was taken to the Rhode Island hospital.
Well, I know it seems from both of them, him and his wife, there were politics kind of involved. And I don't know who we could talk about first. I mean,
well, I think you probably would have to talk about him first, because he was very involved with Providence politics, and he was a great supporter of Mayor Patrick McCarthy, who was mayor of Providence around 1907 for 2 terms. At that point in time, they elected mayors and representatives and officers to the General Assembly every year. Council people, every November there was an election for the following year. Later on, they went to biennial elections every 2 years.
Yeah.
Then, of course, now that both council in Providence, the council and the mayor, are elected every 4 years. So he was very active in Providence politics and served as a representative twice. I believe it was 1904 and 1907. Yeah, and my father remembers people that did come to his house to see him, and it was over some political matters. But he said that my father always gave the person who came privacy, so that he had no one right around him when people came.
Right. I'll just put that picture in there, and I know this is just one of a couple of different things we have.
That's right.
From where his picture was as a representative.
From Providence.
Yeah.
He was from District 7, but all 12 members of the Providence delegation were elected at large.
Okay.
In other words, all 10 or 12 wards voted on it. One period of time it was 10 wards, and Providence did increase to 12 wards at a later period in time, yes. Then they went